Today, we're going to be VOD reviewing a regional participant. And if you don't know what that is and why that's prestigious and why that's important in the TFT scene, let me give you the quick rundown because you should know this. It's very important for the TFT esports scene. But basically, if you do well at regionals, you got to go to Worlds. And obviously, if you got to go to Worlds, the most prestigious tourney in any TFT set, you get to cement yourself as a world-class player, but also cement yourself as a Worlds participant. And hopefully, if you win, lots of money, lots of glory, lots of fame, you get known as a world champ. Very prestigious title in the TFT scene. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about one particular regional participant who played incredibly well during Heartsteel Cup. So this is actually a VOD from a little while back, but everything still stands, a lot of things to learn. And before we start the video, two things real quick. One, if you want to know who's actually participating at regionals, there's a bunch of names here. This is the preliminary top 24 who are going to be participating. Again, this is next week, February 23rd to the 25th, next Friday to Sunday. Couple names you might recognize: Dish Soap, Wajan Iverson, Preston, Replay, Robin Songs, K3 Soju, Appies, etc. A lot of names you might be familiar with, but there's, again, a lot of incredible talent, a lot of like behemoth and titans in the TFT scene. So I don't know if this is the actual finalist, but shout out to Kana for putting this all together. And one last thing, and this is completely unrelated, but I will say this: with Set 10 nearing its completion, Sub-Zero Arc, the other bald, not other, as if I was bald, I am not bald, but Sub-Zero Arc and I are going to be participating in a TFT sub wars. Basically, if you are sub to either my Twitch channel or to Sub-Zero Arc's channel, you are eligible. Also, you have to be Diamond Plus. Unfortunately, we are keeping things small, but basically it's a 16-player tournament where you basically get to compete for the best AVP for your specific team. So either Team Kai or Team Sub-Zero Arc. This will be this Sunday. It's in a couple days, February 18th. Registrations do close on Friday at midnight Pacific time, so feel free to go do that. I will put a link to the sign-up forms below in case you are interested in participating, but it should be really fun. We have some already really interesting players who have signed up for the event, and hopefully we will have a full list of participants coming up on, I believe, Saturday, and then the tourney will be on Sunday. So hopefully that should work out, and I hope to see you guys there. It's gonna be a super fun time. We'll be streaming it over on my channel, I believe. But yeah, sounds good. And anyways, let's get on to today's video. Okay, so here we go. We are inside of Spicy Appies' game, and as you can tell, based off of my banner covering a little bit of the top left, you can tell that this is actually taken from Heartsteel Cup, specifically day 3. Now, out of Heartsteel Cup, out of all the games, none of the games actually struck as particularly like that interesting in my opinion. But in terms of creativity, I think this was actually definitely up there. I almost said Happies. I don't even know where the fuck that came from. But Appies, again, regional player, very strong guy, known for the pink hair. His endgame board was fucking weird. Like, for lack of a better term, his endgame board was fucking weird. And I remember I saw his endgame board. I didn't see his board, like the actual board itself. I saw his match history. And I saw it, and I went, that's not normal. And I was like, this is so odd. But it's such an Appies kind of board, and I was like, you know what, I gotta talk about it, because Appies is kind of an interesting player in the pro scene where a lot of top players, we all follow like standard lines. Like what we kind of expect is this end game board. For example, if you play Penta with super fans, you kind of have an idea as to what that board looks like. If you're playing Disco, you kind of have an idea as to what that board looks like. But Appies is different. Appies just like keeps doing these weird variations, and they're not necessarily better, but he will take whatever the game feeds him and then just play around it. Doesn't really give a shit about the AVP, because he's very good at just being very objective and rational about his board. Just being like, is this good? Is it good enough? Will it secure my top 4? Is it my strongest board? And most of the time it's like, yeah, it is. And it's, you know, it's a good skill to have, because it's very difficult to gauge board strength for a lot of players, as we can tell by the way. 2-1 iron assets. Normally I do pause and talk about the augment choices, but I mean, you saw our other options, right? Like, I mean, nothing was like even remotely good. Like, what, pumping up Silver Veil? Nah. Iron assets. Iron assets is one of those augments, by the way. It's so interesting how out of all the silver augments, when I think of a good silver augment, like iron assets is what pops in mind. It just feels like a good augment. Like, it feels like what a silver augment should be at power level wise, and it just gives you so much with so little, right? You know, it gives a component anvil and 4 gold. And you might be like, oh, it's like, that's not a lot. Excuse me. But that was so foul. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm having a good time. But iron assets, the reason why a lot of pros love it is because the most important thing in TFT, well, it's not the most important, but it's an important thing to have, is direction. you want to know the direction your board is leaning, whether it's leaning towards this comp or that comp, or these items are pointing me towards this unit, right? Having direction makes the game way easier because there's so many permutations, so many options, so many different ways that you can play the game based off whether you want to play rerolls, standard lines, or whatever. A lot of options, a lot of different things on the menu. So boiling it down and trying to figure out what you want to play is important. Like, that's why, you know, it's like going to a restaurant, but you're fucking starving, right? You don't know what to eat. It gets hard. But then let's say you have a peanut allergy. Not to say that having a peanut allergy is bliss. It's actually whiz as fuck, genetically speaking. Like, no disrespect, but seriously, if a nut can kill you, like, come on, man, grow up. But I'm kidding. I'm kidding, by the way. I'm kidding. But I'm saying, like, isn't it easier though? Like, if you go to a restaurant, you're like, yeah, you can't eat like 90% of the food here. It's like, oh, well, I gotta choose between these three. Like, that's not hard. Like, you know, it's kind of the same thing. This is a terrible analogy. I'm really sorry. Anyways, red buff on the Annie makes a lot of sense. I believe it was on a Nico as well on loaded carousel, so that also gives us the Nico as well, so we can play 2 Guardian here, which I believe is our strongest board. Oh, is it our strongest board? It might be Bruisers. It's hard to say. Bruisers buffs like gives everybody 100 HP. It's a lot of HP. But maybe the 50% shield out of the max health of Nico and Tarek is not more than 500. I don't know the answer to that. I can't right click on shit, and I don't know the exact numbers. But numbers, my New England accent is coming out. But you get the idea though, right? Like, I mean, play your strongest board, and that's what he's doing. Good job, Appies. Yes, sir. I probably should not drink beer while doing these. But did I talk about this already? This is like my 8th or 9th take. Like, the thing is that when I do this on stream, and I do VOD reviews on stream, like, I get to just like talk to you guys in real time, right? So like, there's no room to mess up. If I mess up once, that's awkward. I'm not gonna do a whole retake on stream. Like, that's just stupid. So, you know, like, we're here. So now that it's off stream, I gotta take as many takes as I want. Jesus Christ, you got double rod. GRAGAS too. Jesus Christ. That's a lot of, don't say the Lord's name in vain, I think. My apologies. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I just say things and then I wonder, why did I say that? Like, like, you know, when they say, like, you ever go to a nursing home, like a bunch of old people, and sometimes they just say random things. I feel like I kind of get it. Because, like, it's like this thing that you heard when you were a kid, and maybe it was like a funny motto or a slogan or something, and then now all you do is want to quote it all the time. You know, it's like us, like you think I'm talking out of my ass, but if you go to a nursing home, like 60 years from now, when we're in the nursing homes, right, we're gonna be like quoting TikToks and shit, and then the younger gen's gonna be like, well, what the fuck is he on about, like, about, you know, crumpets and whatever, or my lord, like, these fries are absolutely unequivocally bussin'. Healing orbs, blistering strikes, missed connections. It's back to the game. Fuck blistering strikes. It doesn't make any sense. We have red buff. Rerolling right side, which is kind of interesting. I kind of like the econ augment, but having enough money here, or having a combat augment makes a lot of sense here. Appy's actually rolls here 1, which is kind of cool to see. I think his thought process is basically he could hit like anything, a Dazzler, maybe a Guardian unit, right? There's so many good things that he could have potentially hit here. He could still make 30. So I think he was just like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to make the money here and just call it. So good enough. I totally understand. Also, we have 2 GRAGAS 2s on our board. So even though, like, synergy-wise, it isn't the prettiest, this definitely is by far our strongest board. Because by being able to play 2 GRAGAS 2s, we effectively have so much HP on our board. And yeah, we're playing duplicate units. It doesn't look the best. But, I mean, it's our strongest force, so, like, what else are we going to do? Looks like somebody in the lobby is definitely raising the stakes as well. And this lobby HP is actually very interesting. Have you noticed on the right-hand side? Beasters, Super Flames, Ripple, Kiyun, and Appies are all 90 plus. Appies is like second pick carousel with 90 at 33, which is fucking insane. Which means the other 3 are actually loose streaking really hard, but everybody else is relatively somewhat within tempo of each other. So nobody's really like deviating too hard from one another. Again, we're 90 HP win streaking and we're second pick. Isn't that fucking, that's not something that happens very often. So really interesting to see. There is a Zac on the carousel with Rod and Crick Glove. I would assume that's what we go for. The biggest reason is because we can maybe play around like 4 Bruiser potentially, because Zac is really great, but also Rod is really great for our Archangels. Steadfast Heart also makes a lot of sense here, and I definitely would lean towards slamming Archangels here. I'm a little surprised he chooses not to. Maybe you can make the argument he wants to make a Spark, so I guess I could see that just yeah, so it looks like if he slams a rod on the Gragas, it's because he wants Spark. Which makes sense. Like, you do need Shred somewhere along the line, and we do need to eventually find Spark somewhere, right? Like how are we gonna find another rod anytime soon? So honestly, I like it. You know what I don't like though is that he's holding on to the Zac here. I don't know how I feel about that, because like Zac is a good unit, don't get me wrong, but like it's not necessarily like something I would break econ for, especially because we have a Rabbit on stand. We're not playing 80 flex, so Zac and AP lines doesn't make a lot of sense, but maybe he really values 4 bruiser, so maybe that's why he's holding on to it, but I'm not the biggest fan. EDM, funny enough, trait wise, in terms of the trait web, really fits beautifully inside of Disco. EDM Disco was a comp people have been theorizing since, I believe, PvE, but no one has been able to really make it work, which is kind of unfortunate because you think it'd be good, but it just falls flat compared to everything else that is available in the current meta. Looks like we are 80 HP, so we're actually relatively very healthy. We did lose our win streak, which kind of sucks going into neutrals here, so we won't be getting anything out of the orbs or anything. We did cycle our headliner as well with Vex, which is slightly stronger, I guess. Definitely looks like he's going for the Spark, which is interesting as well. We do have purple buff available to us, but again, we are Vex chosen. We do have Rabadons. Our itemization is kind of actually okay for something like 80 flex, but we would have to hit something like a Ziggs or a Kane to be holding on to these AP items, so I'm definitely not the biggest fan of that, and especially because we know there's at least 2 or 3 Heartsteel players, Kyun plus the other guy who's raising the stakes. Very unlikely we'll be able to compete for any of the AD lines, so I can see why he doesn't really want to stand for AD. Given hero grab bag, too big to fail, and remember your roots. Surprisingly enough, Appy is looking at his bench and he's like, hey, I actually have Gragas 3 if I take too big to fail. So why don't I just take Gragas 3 and just call it? Which is a really interesting decision, to say the least. Now, like, you might be wondering, like, why is that a weird... Like, some people are like, oh yeah, I would take it every single time. Okay, cap. But how often are you holding onto like these extra Gragases, being like, oh yeah, maybe I'll play Gragas 3. Like, we were playing our strongest board, and our strongest board happened to be 2 Gragas 2s, and then we just happened to find like a couple other Gragases along the way, and we're just like, fuck it, maybe we just build it. Which is kind of interesting. I think a lot of people would rather just try to item hold the Gragas until we find the Blitzcrank 2, whether that's chosen or not. So it's interesting to see that Gragas is, or not Gragas, sorry, Appies is so willing to just play around the Gragas 3 here. He'd be like, yeah, fuck it, like, it's my strongest board, it's the strongest argument I can take here, why not take it? Which is very interesting decision making. We can also see here it's 4-3 and he's actually not leveling, he's just gonna go and 4-5 it instead, which is typically acceptable. Nowadays 4-2ing it seems to be the latest you can ever really go, but you can 4-5 it if the situation calls for it, like in this one where he's gonna be poor as fuck for the rest of the game. If he just 4-2s it, he has no money to have to donkey roll like every single turn, so the patience to go 4-5 totally understandable, but also because we have enough HP, our board's strong enough. We have Vex too, like it's not the strongest of units, but it's strong enough to at least get us the next 2 rounds. It was a win-loss, totally fine. And we're gonna go level 8, gonna do our roll down here, trying to look for the TF. Ideally it's TF chosen because we are already blitz paired. Wow, a Z chosen, which is super nice. Do have to pass on that, which really sucks here. We have AP items, we do need to play around the AP. Do find the disco chosen, which is super nice with the TF as well. So this is arguably like the best chosen we could hit, which is actually insane. It looks like we do slam redemption as well, keeping the tier open still. So even though we do have the spark, we do have the tier open for potentially like a TF item. I'm not really sure. It would be Archangels though. My guess is that it would be Archangels, and you'd have to be pressed to be playing anything else really. There's no other items that really make a lot of sense here, but we're 20 gold, 4-5, level 8, and we're not playing a standard disco line at all. We're playing like this weird like 2 bruiser, 3 spell disco line, and it's so weird, but it's so creative. It's definitely not something you would think a lot of people would play in general, and he actually opts out of playing the Spellweavers, which I don't know if I fully agree with. On the one hand side, you do get more value out of your augment here with 4 bruiser because too big to fail, the damage scales off of max HP, but also because you have extra units that are going to be willing to explode. He hits the Alawi, by the way, what the fuck. So he hit the Alawi here, so we're definitely playing 4 bruiser now, but I mean the turn prior, I don't know, it's hard to make that distinction because Spellweavers gives 15 AP across your whole team, so everybody getting 15 AP is pretty fucking nice, especially on the TF here. It looks like Oh, I don't know about Shojin here. I definitely was leaning Archangels here. I guess it's an interesting decision. I definitely think it's Archangels instead of Shojin here, and you can maybe make the argument for Gunblade, but he does have Healing Orb, so he does actually have some, you know, level of healing, especially for his front line. But I don't think Shojin makes a lot of sense because, like we were saying before, red buff is already sort of this management item that exists for TF, so you don't really need a Shojin as well. So I do think Archangel was the better slam here. It would have left us with Steadfast Heart anyways. We just would have had a very, I believe it was a Crit Glove for our last component. Or so, it would have been something else. I don't remember entirely. But we definitely could have had like Archangels and like some sort of like, I would have left this with a sword, I think. And like some sort of like tank item for our front line. So I don't fully agree with this decision, but I think it's fine, it's acceptable, but I do think Archangels is the higher cap. But anyways, it seems that I mean, it seems that we're doing really well though. We're level 8, 5-2, we're like 60 gold. We find we just natural the fucking Blitz 2. I mean, okay, like to be fair, you might think like, oh, he naturals the Blitz 2, he hit the TF chosen, like what the fuck, this guy's high rolling out of his mind. But like, if you think about it, who the fuck is running Disco? Like, not a lot of people like to run it. So he's running an uncontested line where there's a decent amount of Hearthstone players as well, and a lot of forecasts are taken out of the pool. And who the fuck is holding Blitz rank? Not a lot of people. There is some discussion with like this 4 Sentinel like Spellweaver Seraphine line, but I don't really know if anyone's playing Seraphine reroll in this lobby in particular, which is a little interesting to see because 2-cost reroll is definitely a little more prevalent in the current meta. But we can talk about it another time. Just the B patch, just, you know, shifted a couple things around. But anyways, based off of what we can take here, I think Adaptive is the best thing we can take. Shiv is an interesting decision. I don't know if I fully agree with it. Actually, I don't think I do agree with it. I do think Adaptive on Blitzcrank makes way more sense here. We have enough Shred with the GRAGAS 3. I don't particularly think that we need anything stronger. But I will say, though, this GRAGAS 3 does not seem as menacing as it should be. And I say that because, like I said in the early game, GRAGAS is an incredible unit, right? Heals 600 HP. Really strong in the early game, but late game kind of falls off. I would like to see GRAGAS 3 scaling be a lot higher for his heal. Like, his healing really doesn't go up that much, but going from 2-star to 3-star, it's really not too big of a diff. His HP bar just gets a lot more massive. Also, I just realized I may or may not have actually discussed GRAGAS' early game and how he's strong or not, but this is like take 9. So, quite honestly, like, now you know. I feel like I definitely talked about it in a previous take, but I didn't talk about it in this take. I'm sorry. But anyways, isn't this kind of a cool board though? Like, dude, Appy's kind of cooked with this one. Like, he's like, oh, like he did find like all the GRAGASes and they kind of came naturally to him. But like, dude, like, if the game gives you GRAGAS 3, are you playing GRAGAS 3? Like, not always. Like, I don't know, is GRAGAS 3 tankier than a Blitz 2? Theoretically, it should be, right? Because like just gold wise, right, it's more expensive unit. It's an 18 gold unit versus like a like a 12 gold unit, but it's not like something I would particularly like roll for. By the way, we're level 950, level 950. Like, Appy's could go 10 here. He actually could go 10 here, and it would make a lot of sense. We're actually okay. So we're Shiv Spark. We are Shiv Spark. What are the options? Was Spark really the best thing we could take in here? Was there really not a single other tank? I mean, if there's no other tank item, it is what it is. But I believe Appy's is going fast 10 here. I believe. There's no reason not to. You could make the argument that maybe going fast 10 is a bit of a mistake because maybe he doesn't beat anybody in the lobby. And if that's the case, he should definitely roll on 9 and try to cap out harder with legendaries like Zac 2. We have Tom Kench and this fucking Olaf on our board for some reason. With 6 Bruiser, which is kind of sick, by the way. 6 Bruiser, 5 Disco. Pause. But I don't know if we're actually necessarily beating anybody. The problem with Bruisers in general and this too big to fail augment in general is that you are playing a lot of fucking shitters on your board. So, like, I don't know. If I'm Appy's, I'm conflicted as hell here because I'm like, I want to go 10. I really want to go 10. What else am I rolling for, right? But like this Olaf could be something else. This Tom Kench could have been something else. Like this could have been Ziggs. We could have had different legendaries as well. Maybe 4 Dazzler somehow fits into this board, right? Like, I don't really know if 6 Bruisers is really the correct way to go. Too big to fail. If you check the stats, it also is a lot better in the early game than it is in the late game. Reason being is that the HP on Explosion on death is a lot in the early game, but it's not particularly that hot in the late game. So I'm not sure how I feel about, like, we do end up getting 10 here, but this does feel like a bit of a blunder now in retrospect. I didn't really expect the lobby to also die so quickly, but we are 6 disco, 4 dazzler, 4 bruiser, which is fine. But I feel like we could have definitely kept it a lot harder with so much money on 9, trying to play around legendaries, things like the Zac 2 and the Ziggs 2. But even I was like, dude, this is like, you might as well just go 10 in this spot. But I mean, it's hard to say. It's a really hard decision to make, but I think being able to identify that you should have probably went to 10, or probably should have stayed 9 and rolled on 9 instead. It's a hard decision. It's a really, really hard decision, and we are playing into a Riven 3 player. So Riven 3, if you don't know, is one of TF's worst matchups. So this is definitely going to be a hard one for Appy, to say the least. I also don't like the way that he positioned for this. With Riven in particular, you do really want to be positioning like the ball sack positioning, so that she ends up sort of targeting down one ball sack and not the other. It gives you a little more time to ramp up and try to kill it, but unfortunately we don't end up getting the kill here, and it is a third. But anyways, I mean, Appy's, yo, shout out to you, man. 6 bruiser, 5 disco, like what the fuck? And then level 10, playing this different line as well. It is, again, very difficult to discern whether you should level 10 there or just stick to 9. It did seem like he had a lot more life in him, based off that current spot in particular, but you know what, it is what it is. Still, very, very solid third. Was it the most well executed of games? No. But was it the most standard of games? No. I still think it was really fun. But anyways, hope this was helpful. Hope you guys learned something, and I will see you guys all later. Take care, guys, and happy climbing.